Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today's Combined Authority meeting. We're joined today by John Roberts, Chief Fire Officer for West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Services, who will be joining us later around the table to discuss the local remediation action plan, and I look forward to that conversation. We've a really packed agenda today, so pardon me if I am going to be rattling through some of these items. And as always, if you have a question, it's a question, not a statement. So thank you very much for being so accommodating. Apologies. So Salma, any apologies?
In terms of apologies, we have apologies for absence from councillors Sue Holdsworth and Claire Douglas, with councillors Stuart Golden and Peter Kilbane attending as their substitutes respectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Salma. Declarations of interest. Do members have any interest they wish to declare on any item on the agenda? No? Thank you so much. Okie dokie. Exclusion of press and public. Officers have advised that information contained in Appendices 1 to Agenda Item 6, Bus Franchising Update, are treated as exempt under Paragraph 3 of Part 1 to Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. They contain information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the Combined Authority. Further, that it's considered that the public interest in maintaining the content of the appendices as exempt outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information, as publication could prejudice current and future decision making. If we agree the press and public will be excluded, should members wish to discuss the content of the appendices when we consider item 7. Are we content? Lovely, thank you. Minutes of the meeting. Turning to the minutes of the CA 24th of July 2025. Do members have any further comments or questions? No, thank you so much. Are we content to confirm these as an accurate record? We are. Brilliant. Okie doke, item 5. Just on my, excuse me, the Mayor's update. Well, there's been quite a lot going on since we last met before the summer. Some quite significant changes in government, with changes to several key ministerial roles. I spoke with Steve Reid, the new Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government this week. With other mayors, he was joined by Miata Farambulla, the new Minister for Devolution for Local Growth, who's also leading on the English Devolution Bill for Government. I was reassured that the new ministerial team are continuing where Angela Rayner and Jim McMahon left off. They are clear that the bill is the floor and not the ceiling on the ambitions for transferring powers out of Whitehall and into communities across England. They're also keen to continue working with mayors and will take forward conversations we had at the Mayor's Council earlier this month. The council was chaired by the former Deputy Prime Minister and was addressed by Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, and James Murray, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. We discussed the role of mayors in government's 10-year health plan for England, how the mayoral role in Great British Rail is developing, and also our collective ambitions for greater fiscal devolution across England. The council had the opportunity to discuss the shadow right to request process, which forms part of the English Devolution Bill. Mayors and strategic authorities are able now to request new powers from government ahead of fiscal events, and the bill makes clear that government must either accept the request or give good reason why they cannot. This is a genuinely welcome improvement on the current opaque process. The bill itself had its second reading in Parliament at the beginning of the month and now has entered the committee stage. On Tuesday, I was invited as chair of the UK Mayors to give evidence to the Public Bill Committee, where I emphasised the importance of the bill, the opportunity it has to truly embed devolution across government and Whitehall. So, a lot to get through, so I'll leave my update there. Moving on to item 6, bus franchising. We are absolutely powering ahead with plans to transform our bus network and to introduce the Weaver network. This report shows just how far we've come. At the last meeting, we took a decision at this table setting out our approach to procurement of our Weaver network, and today's decision means we're putting this in action. We've launched a new system, a dynamic market that makes it easier for operators to get involved. It's open, it's flexible, and designed to bring in fresh energy from across the sector. With tendering about to begin for round 1, we are entering a really pivotal phase. And I know we're all committed to delivering a bus network that's greener, fairer and better connected for everyone in West Yorkshire. I'm pleased to see the network of services proposed for round 1 brought forward ahead of launching the process to award these contracts in October, and to see proposals to consult on a service permit regime which will enable the continuation and growth of vital services which will sit outside of franchising. And I know that this is really important to members in York and also in South Yorkshire. I'm also really pleased to see plans set out for how we will consider our ambition for future network enhancements as we move towards a fully franchised bus network across West Yorkshire, reflecting the great opportunity franchising brings. So, can I ask Councillor Hinchcliffe, as Chair of the Transport Committee, to comment before passing to Simon Warburton, our Executive Director for Transport, to take us through the recommendations. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. No, just pleased to see this further update about a major piece of work that's happening, obviously, across the Combined Authority, at bringing buses back into public control. There is a huge amount of work with this, got to get it right, and we want to make sure that people have an excellent bus service in the future, probably better than the one they've had in the past. So I'll just pass on to Simon Warburton to go through that.
Simon, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So if I can just spend a few minutes just summarising the report that's before members, and then myself, supported by Alex Clark, who members know well, has been involved in the bus franchising programme for a number of years, are here then to help members with any questions that you may have. So, as you rightly identified, Mayor, that the first round of our bus franchising tendering exercise starts next month. We will go to the market on the 6th of October for Tier A lots, and then the 20th of October for Tier B and C lots. And again, as you rightly noted, Mayor, the contracting conditions for that approach were agreed at the July meeting and then delegated to the Chief Executive in consultation with yourself for their deployment through round 1. Building on that, this report now deals with two consequent issues which have already been the subject of very helpful review through the cross-party members shadow board that we have now established. And those two areas are around the network specification for round 1, day 1, which is set out in the private appendix 1 for members' consideration prior to its publication as part of the issuing of tender documentation from the 6th of October. So this is a temporary private publication of this material, simply so that we can ensure that there is a consistent presentation of material to the market from the start of the procurement launch. And then the second area that the report covers is around the arrangements for developing a permit system for services operating from outside of West Yorkshire into the franchising area. So just to go into those two areas slightly further, with regard to network specification, we start in the report by setting out the principles that we have adopted to bring forward in the private appendix a network continuity baseline offer. And we set out the principles to that approach in paragraphs 3.17 to 3.23. We then go on to talk, of course, around how we would then seek to develop the network thereafter. And we pick this up in two parts, really, in the report. So firstly, in 3.24 to 3.30, we started to talk about how we have given consideration to any iterative development at this early stage. But then we go on from paragraph 3.62 to discuss how the forthcoming legislation, which is currently completing its passage through Parliament, will then provide us as a bus franchising authority with the opportunity to develop the network to meet our integrated transport ambitions as set out through the Weaver Network vision, and as we are consulting with the public on through the local transport plan consultation, based on a series of critical factors, which of course we will be in a stronger position to inform once we're in receipt of all of the data through the operation of the franchising system. And those factors are set out at paragraph 3.86. They cover a range of critical outcomes that we're looking to achieve, but also that very central imperative that we've maintained throughout this process of ensuring a sustainable financial viability to the proposition that we bring forward over time. And then with regard to the permit regime, what the report sets out here is how the permit regime can be deployed to secure network standards for those services which will not be directly part of the franchise system because they operate into West Yorkshire, but provide a critical part of the overall transport system here in the conurbation. The legislation again sets out a statutory process for the development of the permit regime as set out from paragraph 3.45, and that includes a very clear statement of scope in terms of the aspects of a service which can be included in a permit regime, which we've summarised in paragraph 3.50, the series of bullet points there. We intend to have a permit system in place by the start of 2027, so in advance of April 27 operation of round one of the franchising system, and therefore we need to now start the development process. So what we are seeking is delegated authority to move into a statutory consultation process, which is set out in the legislation, and we would then go through the steps that we've set out at paragraph 3.61 to discharge that duty. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Simon. That's a comprehensive summary. Thank you. Can I just, before I bring you in, Councillor Galton, can I ask if members wish to discuss the private appendix? Will we want to discuss the private appendix? No? Great stuff. So we can keep the public and press in the room. So, Councillor Galton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very encouraged that all the necessary due diligence is being followed to make sure that this gets implemented as robustly as possible as a new system. But I'm aware that what we are going to have in our franchise system is effectively a reproduction of the system that we've already got, hopefully with some better performance associated with it. What I'm interested in, though, is that because we're spending a lot of time on that discussion with the potential new providers, at what point will we be able to talk to communities about how they might have different bus services, the bus services that they aspire to? A lot of the bus routes that we're going to be replicating have been streamlined over the years and effectively have cut off some communities from accessing decent services. And we might want to propose alternative, perhaps circular bus routes within communities to connect people up as opposed to connect everywhere to Leeds or Bradford. At what point in the franchising process do we welcome that kind of discussion with the local population? And also, on a more technical point, we have particular contracts which are associated with park and ride infrastructure in Leeds in particular. As a local councillor, I'd like to see access to those park and rides from our current scheduled services from 5 towns. And I think that will make a more effective bus service for my community. When do we start having that conversation?
Two very, very good questions. Thank you for those. And obviously we're very proud of the Bradford Superloop and the Leeds Loop as well. So I really understand what you're saying regarding communities. Simon.
Thank you. So Councillor Galton raises a really important point. So, as we set out in the report, our ambition does not stop at the stage of moving into the day one operation, which, as you rightly say, Councillor Galton, is with a degree of change at the margin and clearly subject to the market prices that we receive through the tendering process, intended to be really quite a close representation of the current system for a number of important reasons. I should stress. Firstly, recognising that this is a significant transition period that we go through in the first instance, and that the most important deliverable is to ensure that all of the communities who depend on our bus system at present can depend on that bus service in exactly the same way on day one of operation, to allow for transition where that takes place. And of course we do have an organised process for that, with a 9-month letting process and a 9-month preparation process through each of our arrangements. That is not to say that we do not anticipate customers seeing real benefit on day one. The establishment and the agreement by the Combined Authority of the Weaver Network principles and the Weaver Network identity means that we can now start to bring forward to you the customer proposition, the one-stop shop proposition that sits at the heart of both bus franchising and the Weaver Network, and therefore we're able to introduce a set of consistent customer standards and consistent customer service elements on that first day, which will bring real benefits in themselves. Now, turning to where we go thereafter, clearly we want to ensure that the development of the network over time is based on strong evidence, and that evidence needs to come from a series of different sources. We will need to ensure that the advice that we're bringing to you as members is based on good, robust commercial and financial viability principles. We will want to ensure that the network that we are bringing forward to you is based on our best understanding of how we can improve the system to encourage greater take-up. We want to ensure that the network represents the growth pattern of the city region over time, but fundamentally it also does, as Councillor Galton says, need to represent the views of the community. Of course, that was one of the central cases for bus franchising in the first instance. So working with the members' shadow board over the next few months, there was a very early discussion of some of these aspects in the most recent meeting of the shadow board. With the team, I'm going to start to bring forward some early suggestions that we can then rehearse through shadow board discussions around where we should take a local engagement and then local governance model of input. What I want to be able to ensure for yourselves as members is that we use a range of different channels, not just combined authority channels, but also local authority neighbourhood channels as well, to be able to gather evidence in terms of neighbourhood needs, but that there is then an appropriate forum at a local authority level, at a district level, that brings all of that information together so that there is then one point of consideration on a locality basis to bring through here to the combined authority. And it's those principles that I now want to be able to build up, agree with yourselves as members through discussion at the shadow board, and then bringing forward here to the combined authority, so that we can all be very clear in terms of how we achieve that ambition.
And the park and ride, anything specific on that?
Yes, and so I would then look for the team to bring forward the assessment of park and ride through that same mechanism. I share Councillor Galton's ambition. We've seen huge success, and we're seeing a real resurgence of demand on the Leeds Park and Ride system. Now it's a critical part of our overall transport system. I want us to be able to learn from that and develop it further.
Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think on this issue, it's fair to say we all share exactly the same objective of wanting better buses for our communities. We might differ slightly on what we think is the best way to do it, but where there are challenges, it is couched because we want you to succeed, and we want those better buses for our communities. The couple of points I want to make, first of all, on the routes coming into the area from outside. Is it the case that we will also operate some routes in reverse? And would that be on a commercial basis? And I suppose the question, where does the money go from those in both senses? And is it just we will be proactively looking to generate income by operating services outside of the area, or just be because the routes make sense? Because it's not going to be like a Morrison's trolley where you get to the border and the brakes come on. If there's another settlement that it makes sense to go to, then that's what we would do. And the second bit is really, whenever you've got a big programme like this, the two things really fundamentally you want to know: is it on time? Is it on budget? It seems to me it's on time, which is great. What we can't see at this stage is if it's on budget, because we don't know. And I think we really do need to know that. And I think we also need to set out the clear principles about what we'll do in different circumstances, because there's an awful lot that we don't know, which makes it difficult to set a budget. What concerns me is the original business case was predicated on bus patronage going up, and bus patronage has gone down since we did that. That tells you there's a gap in fare income, and there's potential that in order to deliver the same network we've got now, it will need more money. So I just had to be clear about when we are going to be able to see and track the budget from there.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Simon, that's not quite the case, is it?
No, so just to correct the one point, Councillor Lamb, so the bus franchising assessment that was the basis upon which the Mayor took the decision to move to a franchising system, as we set out clearly in public reports at the time, was based on a conservative long-term, conservative small c, long-term network decline model. So we were able to demonstrate to ourselves financial viability in a likely worst case scenario of long-term decline. Now, clearly that is not our ambition, but I can reassure members that it was a very prudent approach, and of course that approach was audited by Grant Thornton through a statutory process along the way. Councillor Lamb raises an important point that we now move into the dynamic of a market, and a series of those audited assessments will now be tested in market conditions. We will, in private, in an appropriate way, be able to keep members aware of the market response and the extent to which we feel that our model is exposed by market prices. That is something that we will look to bring forward through the tendering process in an appropriate and clearly private manner, recognising that it will still be a live market. But at the moment, obviously, I do not have that data available to me to be able to give that advice. We have also have a programme of work which the Director of Finance is overseeing to further strengthen our financial model based on the model that was in the assessment, so that we can make best use of that market information to be able to project and test against the financial viability. So the start of a process is where we are now in terms of monitoring budget. We have an 18-month process to take ourselves through for phase one. I think what Councillor Lamb raises, which I will make sure members are aware of, is when you can expect the updates in terms of what we understand from the market.
Thank you. And I know that Councillor Kilbane will be also interested in the question regarding cross-border payments, etc.
Apologies. So with regards to cross-boundary services, yes, there will be a series of Weaver network services which will operate outside of the area. Members in the west of the conurbation will be aware of 1 or 2B network services that operate into the area from Greater Manchester. We will continue to develop the network on the principles that we've set out in the report. They will be consistent in the context of any network development that we bring forward, and it will consistently be about achieving our local transport outcomes. So yeah, travel in West Yorkshire does not stop at the boundary, and we would never propose a travel system that does that.
Councillor Kilbane.
Thank you, Chair, and just want to really welcome this paper. It's great to see combined authorities starting to tackle the decades of decimation that deregulation has brought to the bus services nationally. In West Yorkshire, you're a lot further on, it's fair to say, than York and North Yorkshire, although we do have one of the rural bus franchising pilots, and I know that our officers in York and North Yorkshire are working closely with your officers in West Yorkshire to make sure that we get that smooth transition with continuation of service, because quite a lot of people who live in North Yorkshire, their main destination is West Yorkshire, and obviously we want as many of those people, especially in areas, and there are quite a few areas in North Yorkshire that are not connected to the main train lines, where bus is the suitable option. I know work is going on around the permit system. We just need to make sure that works well with the services that are currently operating in North Yorkshire, where we are still working under a deregularised system, which means we have to go out to out to tender according to dates that are not always within our control. So if we can just make sure that, and it's going to be tricky, but if we can make sure that works well between the two, a brighter future for bus users across the whole of Yorkshire.
Thank you. That's a great additional comment and support. Thank you so much. And I was at Hetmond Wyke bus station, the new bus station that's coming out of the ground. That's going to be our first Weaver, fully branded Weaver bus station, and also Huddersfield and Dewsbury will also have the Weaver branding. So I'm hoping that the public will start to see changes on the ground as we go through towards fully franchised. Any further comments on this paper? No, thank you so much. Okie doke. So can we approve the recommendations? Can we approve the development of service specifications for round one bus franchising contracts? Thank you so much. Can we endorse the proposed network output set out in Appendix 1 to inform round one franchising? Thank you. Can we note the progress on the service permit scheme and proposed permit conditions ahead of the franchising launch? Thank you. Delegate authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself to undertake statutory consultation on the service permit scheme and permit conditions. Thank you. And note the approach to future network changes and plans to ensure service continuity during the transition to franchising. Superb. Thank you. Moving on to our next exciting transport project, Mass Transit. The next item is an update on the Mass Transit programme, a vital element of our Weaver network, one of the most ambitious projects we've ever taken on. I'm really pleased to see the pace and progress continuing. The updated business case is well underway. The team is working hard to keep us on track for those spades in the ground by 2028. I'm also encouraged by the parallel work streams now moving forward, especially the early design work, consultation planning and preparation for the Transport and Works Act order. All of these are critical to keeping the programme on schedule and delivering the high quality, low emission transport system our region deserves. The funding request today will help us maintain momentum and support the next phase of development. It is a significant investment, but it sits comfortably within the funding envelope already approved. I also welcome the proposal for officer delegations outside of key decision points. This is going to help us, be able to stay agile and responsive as the programme evolves. So can I ask Councillor Hinchcliffe and then Mike Birch, our Director of Mass Transit, to take us through the recommendations. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add to that, obviously this is one of the biggest transport programmes going on in the country at the moment in West Yorkshire, along with everything else that we've got on this agenda. It's really exciting to see that much transport investment going in, and therefore it is absolutely right that we've got the right team behind it and the right resourcing behind it, so we need to make sure we keep going with that. But with that, I'll pass over to Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hinchcliffe. So the paper seeks to summarise three key areas. The first is the programme update. The second is forward visibility of key decisions that will be brought to the Combined Authority. And then the final one is the funding drawdown as part of CRSTS allocations. So significant technical design and environmental work has been undertaken to progress the programme. This work sits alongside the development of our strategic outline case as the first step of the business case process. We've also commenced market engagement to begin to engage with the marketplace to help influence and inform our future procurement strategies. Together with this, advocacy work across the programme remains strong. We've hosted several key events, including parliamentary drop-ins in Westminster, active involvement in UK Reef and the UK Light Rail Conference. We've successfully launched our hashtag Team West Yorkshire Tram Ambassador programme and currently have over 120 ambassadors signed up, representing multiple organisations advocating for the programme. The technical feasibility and planning tender for the Dewsbury Line project is currently underway and we expect to be concluded in the coming weeks. And the programme continues to work to those near-term revisions to the programme outlined in the paper for the submission of the strategic outline case in March next year, followed shortly after by consultation. As the Mayor has outlined, we remain on track for Spades in the Ground 2028, and we recognise the importance of getting things right at this stage in the programme to ensure that we deliver the best outcome possible for the people of West Yorkshire. The key future decision points to be brought to the Combined Authority have been set out within the paper to ensure forward visibility. We ask members to note that the dates specified may change, as is typical on schemes of this size and nature. And finally, the funding drawdown of 40.5 million is requested to support key works and keep the project on track. These works include further technical environmental assessment work on the Leeds and Bradford lines and the development of the strategic outline case, together with the Dewsbury line work. This request will bring the total funding allocation to 121 million, drawn down against the original CRSTS allocation for the programme of 202 million that will take us through to March 2027. So I'm happy to take questions, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Any questions on this paper? Yes, Councillor Anderson.
In terms of paragraph 8, risks and mitigations, is there any reason why the actual risks that you've got cannot be brought to the attention of the Combined Authority so that we can read those alongside the other decisions that we're making? Because it says with all programmes at this stage there remains a number of programme risks. These are being managed through the risk management process. Fine, that's a bit, but what are those risks?
Mike?
Yeah, no problem. So, Councillor Anderson, there's no reason why that level of detail can't be shared, just for visibility for members. The risk tracker for the programme represents in excess of 350 individual risks. A series of top and topical risks could certainly be brought forward to give that visibility of the main items, if that's helpful.
Thank you. And I would say with the HS2 project, one of their risks was the number of outside companies that were involved, and that's why I'm finding it really pleasing that our team are looking about very carefully how we grow our own and our in-house talent, because this is a decade-long project. So we can't just rely on outside support. So I think that's also an important part of the paper. Any further comments? Councillor Galton.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry if I've missed something, but something just came to me when you mentioned HS2 and assurance around finance came into my head. And I just wondered, we're hoping to get spades in the ground by 2028. And there's lots of preparatory work happening here. At what point do we know we're over the line in terms of potential legislative barriers being overcome? Do you see what I mean? So that we won't get to the point where a Prime Minister turns around and says, we can't afford it anymore. What date is that before the spade's in the ground in 2028?
Yes, Mike.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the programme currently sees us submitting our TWA application in 2027. In parallel to that, there will be the outline business case. So in 2028, we expect consent to progress with the scheme together with final business case approval. The key question is whether or not either of those things prevent government decisions being reversed, which I don't feel is an appropriate comment for an officer on the programme to probably pass comment on.
Very good, you've been trained. Obviously, anything can happen in politics, but I have confidence that we have the political will regionally and the political will nationally to get this over the ground. But of course, it is up to us to show value for money and to have impact on our communities for growth, house building and all of that. We have to make a very powerful case, and I am confident that we can make that case, that whatever political hue, you will understand that this is vital, important and necessary and needs to be done. Any further comments on this paper? No, thank you. Okie doke, thanks. Can we then note the progress on the West Yorkshire Mass Transit Programme and current delivery position? Noted, thank you. Approve revised timeline for SOC submission by March 26 and reaffirm the commitment to key milestones, including spades in the ground by 2028. Wonderful. Note future key decisions to be brought to the Combined Authority as outlined in the report. Thank you. Approve officer delegations, including to the Chief Executive and myself, for decisions outside key decision points that do not materially affect programme timescales. Thank you. Approve up to £40,487,682, very clear that, of additional funding for development activity through to SOC submission with the previously approved funding envelope. We can, thank you, that feels very good. Note that future approvals will follow the assurance pathway and remain within agreed programme tolerances. We can note. Thank you so much. Moving on. Item 8, West Yorkshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy. Fantastic opportunity this for West Yorkshire, and I'm proud of the work that's gone into shaping this draft. Sets out a clear and ambitious plan to restore habitats, protect wildlife and reconnect people with the natural world. Obviously, this report shows the scale of the challenge, but the huge potential that we have to revive our landscapes, create that healthier, greener region for everyone. I'm really pleased to see how the strategy supports our wider climate goals, reflects our commitment to a sustainable future and a strong foundation. And now we're ready to take it out to consultation and hear from the communities of West Yorkshire. Could I ask Councillor Jane Scullion, as Chair of the Climate, Energy and Environment Committee, to speak to the report, followed by Liz Hunter, our Director for Policing, Environment and Place, to take us through the recommendations. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you, Mayor, and apologies for being late. I'm really pleased to introduce this. It's had a long history of working on this. And I wanted just to say a few words by way of context. And the first is that wildlife is under threat in this country. My daughter, who's 41, she's never seen a hedgehog. Never seen a hedgehog. And most of her peers have never seen a hedgehog. and we live in a semi-rural part of West Yorkshire, and she's never seen a hedgehog. Things like hedgehogs actually gradually disappearing. And there was a report last year from State of Yorkshire Nature Report, nearly 2,000 species lost over the last 200 years, and with 1 in 5 declining by 25% in just the last 20 to 30 years. So those things that we took for granted, really, in terms of our wildlife are under threat. And of course, within West Yorkshire, for all the reasons to do with our industry and our past, 80% of our wetlands have gone. And half of Yorkshire rivers, and we'll know this because it's been very topical, half of Yorkshire rivers have been altered or are in poor condition. So this particular strategy, which we've developed in conjunction not just with councils, but enormous range of partners, you know, Peak District National Park, even Natural England, stakeholders, community groups, etc. And it's being considered at various stages in its development by the Climate, Energy and Environment Committee that I chair. And we started to look at it, to look back at 2003, and we looked at it just at the last meeting this summer this year. And it has also involved engagement with members of the Scrutiny Committee. So it's been through a lot since 2023, and therefore what's in front of you to go out for consultation is very much a draft, but I think it's also a massive milestone because it's the first time, as the Mayor says, that our strategic ambitions for nature recovery in its widest sense have been articulated in this joint way. And it's part of our conversation with government about the way in which funds for nature recovery come to us. I won't go into the detail of what's in the report, but I just wanted to pull out one strand, and it's what you might expect. As a councillor in West Yorkshire and Calderdale, water is a central theme within this strategy. Nature recovery in West Yorkshire and beyond, really, it could stand or fall depending on how we do water management in this I was going to say county, in this combined authority. Because we know that we're living with water, we're responding to water, we're managing it, and that's why it's an overarching thread which runs throughout the strategy. There, clearly you talk about, within the strategy, we talk about vision to re-wet the region. That does not mean we want more rain. That means actually that we want the peat bogs, their carbon roll, those kind of things to actually be restored and be in good health. We also want, as part of that, we think nature recovery really contributes to flood management, but it also contributes to drought management. And we know this last summer, and of course we've still got a hosepipe ban. Even though it rains from the heavens, we've got a hosepipe ban in West Yorkshire. We haven't got one in London, by the way. And I think also the nature recovery has got a real contribution to make to urban cooling in our cities and towns across West Yorkshire. Actually, the way in which we do tree planting, make things better for nature, also makes it better for us to manage as human beings in terms of working and living in the area. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you for those introductions. So given everything that's already been said, I'll just focus on the recommendation, which, as you've already said, is if members of the Combined Authority today are happy, we will proceed to consultation. Just to note, we are following a statutory process, so there are supporting bodies whose objections we're hoping won't come forward, because that will enable us then to go to consultation. And then we will look, following that, to understand the results from the consultation and come back to yourselves in the new year with a finalised draft. So subject to your comments today, we'll make any further tweaks to the document before consultation and then come back to you following that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I just want to support what you were saying, Jane, about the water element of it, the string of blue pearls of water, you know, and leisure opportunities will really add to our tourism offer as well. Any comments on the strategy? No? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd say really support this strategy, and it's probably slightly uncomfortable for both Councillor Scullion and I how often we find ourselves agreeing with each other around this table. So sorry, Councillor Scullion, but it's really positive. The challenge is, like many of these things, the policy is in direct conflict with lots of our other objectives. And there's a real balance to strike, because I think what a lot of people come back in the consultation will be, the first thing we need to do is stop building on green belt, green field and rural land because we need it. Yes, we need more houses as well. That's an equally high priority. But I think part of this needs to be a bit of pressure back to government around the changes they've made to planning policy, which has made it far easier for developers to choose not to build more houses, just to build them on green fields instead of brown fields where it's more expensive. And I think that that's one aspect. If we can capture that and find a way to balance delivering this and still deliver our other priorities, that's going to be the real tricky bit.
Thank you. Councillor Galton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to endorse your emphasis on the fact that investing in biodiversity doesn't necessarily mean that it's zero sum. It can actually enhance our offer in terms of tourism. In my particular local area, we did put in a levelling up bid with the previous government to try and deliver greater employment thanks to the regreening of post-industrial landscape. And of course the Mayor was there the other week at Infinium at the opening of that business, and it was a great example of how we can reinvest in post-industrial landscape, create good, clean future jobs, and those companies will invest in the environment around them, and the River Aire Valley could, for instance, become a real key tourist destination as opposed to just the city's effluent ridder that it used to be in the past. And I think that the investment in the biodiversity, if we include the people, which is one of the priorities that's in this plan, I'm really glad to see that you've included that. We need to make sure that we're not just being seen to invest in nature, but that we're investing in people benefiting from nature, because it has a huge impact, not just economically for tourism, but in terms of our own mental health. So I really do endorse this paper.
Thank you, Jane.
Mayor, I have already reported myself to the whips for my agreement with both the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives. Councillor Lamb's absolutely right that there's always, in the public sector, policy conflict. And I think in some ways, I agree in terms of how we manage housing development, and we know we need housing. We know that housing is at the bottom of healthy lives and future. And, you know, the discussions we've had about grey belt versus green belt. Actually, I feel very reassured by the work of the Combined Authority, because one of the things that we've done as a Combined Authority, I know that from being on other committees, is we have really worked hard with government in terms of releasing brownfield land, because we know the additional expenditure that is required to remediate brownfield land. And actually the fact that we've got the Combined Authority as well as the councils pushing on this, I think gives me some hope in terms of where future expansion might come. But there are always going to be policy conflicts. And one of the things I look to in terms of the developments that we are doing across West Yorkshire is, what do you see when you come into these developments? Do you see a lot of, insert name of developer here, small boxes, or do you actually see developers in conjunction with the Combined Authority and the council talking about what happens when you walk into that estate? What are the suds, the swales, the rills, which are about water management? What is the tree planting? What are the communal spaces? What are the woods and the forests, really? So I think we've all got a project in terms of that. And I absolutely endorse what Councillor Galton says about the Aire Valley. I think it's got tremendous potential, really, in terms of the greening, in terms of tourism, in terms of pleasant place to live and to visit. And that's one of the reasons why, as I said, water runs through it. You know, our rivers run through this. This is a defining feature that weaves together West Yorkshire. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you, and it was very pleasing to see the changes to the Green Book regarding house building, where it's about value for money, so we can build in other communities where it wouldn't have historically stacked up, to make sure that we get those hundreds of thousands of individuals off the waiting list for council accommodation. It is one of the most important things for our communities when it comes to health, if you haven't got a decent home, you will never be healthy. So it's a balance, but I think devolution gives us that opportunity to have that strategic view and to overlay our ambitions for housing and, of course, our ambitions for biodiversity. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Mayor. If you just indulge me, obviously, on a parochial matter, people have mentioned the Aire Valley a couple of times. And obviously, Saltaire, for example, is in the Aire Valley, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So, and River Aire runs right through that. So it already is a beautiful corridor of tourism and greening, which we would do well to learn from our forefathers in how they built that in a sustainable fashion. So I always say that Saltaire is a very good example of that and would do well to learn by it. Thank you.
Mandy.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a great paper and I really endorse it. When you mention small boxes, I think seeing more small boxes as you come into our business environments in terms of bat boxes and bird boxes would be a really great addition to that. And so I'd really welcome the chance to bring this to the business board at some point and talk about the role that business can play in supporting it.
Great suggestion, thank you. Okie doke. Are we then happy to note the engagement and strategy development work undertaken with partners? We are. Approve the pre-consultation draft West Yorkshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy for public consultation, subject to final edits and partner feedback. We are. Superb. Thank you so much. Okie doke. Moving on to item 9, West Yorkshire Local Remediation Plan. Thank you for your patience, John. We are aware that still far too many buildings in West Yorkshire with dangerous cladding are in West Yorkshire, and it's a real chance for us to lead the way to make sure these buildings are fixed without further delay, and I'm really proud of the determination and teamwork that's gone into this plan. The report shows we're stepping up to do what's right, bringing partners together, removing barriers, accelerating the work to make homes safer, giving residents peace of mind, making sure no one is left behind. I'm really encouraged by how this sets us up for the future. As our powers grow through devolution, we'll be ready to take on more responsibility and deliver the change our communities deserve. So thank you, John Roberts, Chief Fire... It's Robbins, isn't it? Roberts. John Robbins is the Chief Constable. John Roberts, Chief Fire Officer. I look forward to your contribution. But first, can I ask Councillor Denise Jeffrey, as Chair of the Place Regeneration and Housing Committee, to speak to the report, followed by Liz Hunter to take us through the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really important piece of work for West Yorkshire. We need to make sure that all residents can feel safe in their homes. The plan has been developed alongside partners in the local authorities and the Fire and Rescue Service, which we have our colleague here today, who has been steered by the Place and Regeneration and Housing Committee. I think we all want to see these buildings remediated as soon as possible, and this plan shows how the Combined Authority will support our partners in achieving this. Liz, do you want to comment?
Thank you. As the paper already sets out and as you've described what this is trying to do, I'll be brief. So just to add a couple of things, that this is very much about accelerating safety, to add that this is in line with the national target date of 2029, very much is about coordinating activity, and again thank you to partners for their involvement in this, and as already mentioned, recognises our future responsibilities. The recommendations are about the adoption of this plan if you're in agreement today. It is something that you would expect us to keep up to date, so we will do minor amendments to it and continue to work with government on it if you're comfortable with that. And of course, if there's more substantive changes, we will bring them back to yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, this is a new ask of government from us to have that coordination across the region. So it's a new area that we're stepping into. But John, if I may pass over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't really got any comments other than obviously what's in the paper. I think it's been a joint endeavour with the Combined Authority and our local authority partners. I guess the commitment from the fire service perspective is that we keep that partnership live. I think, as Liz has said, this is about accelerating the remediation programme to ensure that people are kept safe from their properties. But unless there's any questions, then that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And there have been changes, haven't there, in heights and so on. So we just in lockstep with government, whatever they need from us, we're happy to try and help. Any questions for John? You've come all this way. Surely someone has a question. No? James, anything to add? Obviously, there's a number of high-rises in Leeds, and I was pleased to see the cladding coming off the flats at the dock. So that looks like that work has really escalated and come to a conclusion, which must be good for residents.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had a lot of concerns from residents, particularly leaseholders, that have been quite affected by some of the post-Grenfell events, and like I say, good to see some progress on this.
Thank you, and also for the committee to be aware that the devolution bill gives us responsibilities for fire later down the line. So we're looking forward to spending more time with you, John. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day today, and do thank your officers for all that you do. You keep us safe and run to danger when we're all running the other way. So thank you for all that you do. Okie doke, you don't have to stay if you don't want to, but thank you. So are we happy to adopt the West Yorkshire Local Remediation Acceleration Plan and delegate final amendments to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself? We are, thank you. Delegate approval of future minor amendments to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself. We are. Thank you very much. Okie doke. Moving on to the cluster action plans, the next step of our local growth plan. A brilliant example of how and why we're backing West Yorkshire's strengths, bringing together industry, academia, local partners to drive innovation and unlock growth. It focuses on high potential sectors, advanced manufacturing, creative industries, 2 examples, and sets out clear, practical steps to boost productivity, attract investment and build resilience. And I'm really especially proud of how these plans reflect the diversity and dynamism of our region, from Huddersfield's health innovation sector to Bradford's immersive tech. It's a place-based leadership in action, but not just about short wins. It's about future-proofing our economy, showing investors nationally and globally that we mean business. So may I ask Councillor Lewis, as Chair of the Economy Committee, to speak to the report, followed by Mandy Ridyard, my business advisor, and then over to Felix Kumiampofo, our Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture, to take us through the recommendations. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. And you've given a great introduction, which is basically all I was going to say, but I do think it is really important on this, that this has been driven by the work that we've done both on the Economy Committee and the Business Board, looking at key players in each sector to have an approach that is really focused on getting the growth in these sectors, the ones we've recognised at high growth. I also think it's worth saying as well, because it's also a discussion that comes up at the Economy Committee as well. This isn't the only economic activity either the Combined Authority or the 5 councils are doing. We have recognised these clusters with a particular focus on growth. On growth and sort of being able to drive our economy forward, bring the good jobs that we want into West Yorkshire. But it isn't the only activity as well. I think that's also an important point to recognise.
Thank you so much. And we must also not forget this is the first innovative way of doing things in the country. So we're yet again the pioneers of a new structure for the Business Board. But Mandy, would you like to give us your thoughts?
Thanks. It's always more difficult going third. So, James, you're quite right. The point about it not just being these clusters, although this paper is about the particular growth clusters we're talking about, there is also the foundational economy to think about, and it's really pleasing to see that visitor spending in 2024 rose by 8%, which is significant. Any industry would snap your hand off at the moment for 8% growth, I think. And that supports our fundamental, our foundational economy, as well as the amount of opportunity there will be within the infrastructure work that we have going on. But these clusters, in terms of our high growth clusters, are really important to the whole of the region. And I'm really excited with the work that's going on with both the Economy Board and the way that we're restructuring the Business Board to support this cluster work and engaging more and more businesses behind it. when we get into the cluster action plans, the accountability and delivery of those cluster plans will remain with the combined authority, although the business board and the economy committee will both be involved in that. The economy board will have the oversight, but the collaboration of the cluster action plans with the private sector will have chairs that are accountable to the business board, and I think that's really important that we drive these cluster action plans through private sectors coming together to work out how they can support and help deliver those plans as it's in the clusters that they're part of. So yeah, a great paper, and Felix, I guess, will take us through that next.
Thank you, Mandy. Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. There isn't a lot left to be said, but I suppose a couple of key points really from us. One, this is the first time we've tried to do this. In the local growth plan, we identified these key sectors, and now work has gone on with all our partners to get a better understanding of the players within these sectors, what the challenges, what the barriers are, where the opportunities lie. And these 6 action plans set out then what the key actions are that need to take place to make sure we're able to work together, shared ambitions to grow these clusters. You will notice as you read through them that I think the amount of information and the level of development across the 6 we admit is not the same. Yeah, our depth of knowledge and understanding across these 6 clusters varies, and we are expecting that over the next year or 2, through this approach, we will deepen our understanding and get a better grip of the challenges but also the opportunities within each of these clusters. And so these definitely have to be living documents that we'll be able to go back to periodically, update, improve, etc., and hold each other to account on. And that is really crucial. We are not coming to you here today to say, we know all there is to know about these areas and we're absolutely spot on. We are also learning, and that's really crucial. But it's an important point for us if you are minded to approve these. We will come back at your next meeting in October with the plans on how we are looking to transform the business board, and you will see the clear alignment between this cluster approach and the approach we're taking with the business board to make sure we are working together in a much bigger coalition. This then informs everything we do. So whether it's our international activity or what we do at various events, how we engage with partners, the actions here ensure that we don't have to go back to the drawing board every time there is some funding opportunity or a call. We have worked together to agree the actions. That's what we take and move to implement. So the 2 key the recommendations here, we're hoping that you are minded to approve these so we can get to work on them immediately. And if you are minded to, then you delegate the further evolution of this to be overseen by the Economic Committee, but delegate to, I suppose, the head of pay service and to myself. Thank you.
Great stuff. This is how we have our growth plan up on its feet and delivering. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us. Any questions? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. From a high level, this makes a lot of sense and certainly support the recommendations in it. I'd like to see some more metrics to support it. I'm guessing that's to follow when more detail comes out. The one thing I would really like to see in parallel to this is to identify the sectors that are really struggling. Because if we just go for growth and that's offset by other sectors in decline, we're not really any further forwards. And it's understanding the sectors that are struggling and what we can do to support them. So I don't know if there's any work ongoing to do that, but if there isn't, I think that would be a healthy balance to this, and we'd be in a much better place if we can support those sectors that are finding times very challenging, of which there are many, as well as making sure we take maximum advantage of the big growth opportunities.
Can I just understand what matrix you're looking for? Metrics?
Metrics, well, what exactly we're expecting to achieve, what level of growth, what's the starting point, what timescales are we looking at, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Felix is nodding. That's all good. Councillor Kilbane.
Thank you, Chair. Just from a York perspective, we really welcome this. Clearly, there are synergies with growth plans that are being formed within the North Yorkshire region, I'm sure South Yorkshire as well. And I think the opportunities that this brings for the North and Yorkshire in particular are to be really welcomed as we start to assert ourselves on the national stage in these areas.
Thank you so much. Councillor Scullion.
Thank you. Really welcome this paper because it feels a little bit like this is the start of a new phase, a new era. We've had our legacy industries and we've begun to transition away from those, and this is the next phase, really. So I think really welcome this paper, and particularly the identification of particular clusters. You know, we know where we want to be. I just want to say two things in relation to it. One is that if I could join Councillor Hinchcliffe in being parochial for a moment, not everything that happens happens just in university areas. There is talent in our colleges, actually. So some of that innovation, some of that contribution has to come from our colleges. Innovation sits everywhere, and we know that. The other thing is thinking about volume and scale. This is the beginning of lots and lots of things to do with transition from that industrial legacy. And I was thinking places like Calderdale in particular, you know, we're not necessarily, you know, the big hotel chains, you know, the Marriotts or the Holiday Inns. We're more boutique, actually. We're niche. So in terms of clusters, perhaps thinking about some of those niche contributions, actually, which are about innovation, which are about supply chain innovation, green employment, things like that, that we have actually got a lot to contribute. Not necessarily large scale and volume, but actually I think key in terms of promoting that growth.
Thank you, and I concur that Calderdale College, I went recently, it's really exceptional and innovating on every level, so good to see. Yes, Mandy.
It's a really great point, Jane. Councillor Scullion, and I'd like to say that when we look at some of those clusters, within them there are clusters. So if you take advanced manufacturing, for example, in Councillor Hinchcliffe's district, we have an RF cluster that's emanating out of that, which is a very small part of advanced manufacturing, but is a cluster in itself. So there are boutiques within the clusters, if that helps. And I am very aware of the fact that there is more to it than just those clusters. So things like the LVET, for example, are a really important part of how we push economic growth across a number of areas, as well as these high growth clusters.
Thank you, Mandy. Ben.
Thank you, Chair. I'm asking Felix to kind of give us an overview, because one of the things that's important about this cluster approach is it's targeted for very sensible reasons, but then we need a cross-cutting approach for things such as our trade and investment strategy, our events strategy, and how they contribute to those sectors. And I wonder, Felix, if you just might give members a bit of an overview about how that process will work.
Good stuff. Any further questions before I come back to Felix? Felix, thank you. There's been a number of comments there as well.
Yes, I'll try to take them all really quickly. I know we're struggling for time. So take the point on metrics. There's a lot of work going on outcomes and KPIs, part of integrated settlement and other conversations. We'll come back once there's a bit more clarity on those, but I take that, and it's important that we work. It's a really interesting point you make about sectors that are struggling. We'll take that away. Through this, we're trying to prioritize the limited resource we've got in the areas where we know our effort can lead to, with partners, can lead to significant enough growth, because we know we can't do everything. But the point you make about some sectors which might have specific challenges, which we may be able to support with, and one of the papers that come later might be able to allude to that, I think is fair enough. So we'll have a look at that, and we'll see what is possible within the remit, within reason. I take the points Councillor Scullion make, and again the innovation paper to follow later. We might you might want to have the conversation then. We completely agree. Innovation, whether I'm talking about innovation or knowledge and skills, universities are only a part of this. They're important parts, but only a part of this. And we need to make sure we are developing our approach in a way that all the talents have an opportunity, an equitable opportunity within that. The business advisor chair has talked about some of the subsectors or subclusters that we've got, RF being an example. There are a few others, but that is where this approach could be interesting, because that depth of focus allows us to gain that level of understanding in some of the areas within these clusters, which might get lost in the data, because the granularity in the data often struggles once you start to aggregate up to find a way to make sense and to understand the trends. So we will see, but we are on a learning curve. The point about some of the cross-cutting themes is really, and again, hopefully when we bring the paper next time about the business board, we've got a diagram we're working through to illustrate how we're thinking about this. For all 6, these action plans give us a way to interpret our actions across those cross-cutting themes. So if it's, say, international activity, we can then target our activity to say, what is, I don't know, financial and business services? What is the international angle there? Where are the markets? Where are the opportunities? What are businesses in that space saying they need? And that is what is dictating, or should dictate at least. And the same with skills, is the same with the premises that businesses need, because the different sectors and the different clusters need different types of premises. Some simply want to expand, others need specialist premises, whether it's dry labs, etc. And if we don't have that sense of depth and intensity into each of these clusters, we keep skating over the top. So hopefully in work that follows from this, we'll be able to do that. There's specific work going on international plans, which are noted in each of the action plans you've got here. But when it's aggregated up, hopefully you'll be able to pick those out in a way that makes sense.
Thank you. And on international trade missions, we can identify a couple or 3 clusters, and so we make the most of those trips and taking businesses that reflect the different clusters. So it's not just one cluster. No. We're amplifying and elevating and supporting. So it's an opportunity to overlay the ambitions for growth in each of these clusters. Thank you. Any further comments? No? Thank you so much. Okie doke. Are we happy to approve the 6 cluster action plans developed to accelerate growth across West Yorkshire's priority sectors? We are. Delegate future development of the cluster action plans to the Economy Committee. Excellent. Okay, moving on. Item 11. It's an update on Healthy Working Life programme. This is about helping more people across West Yorkshire into jobs that support well-being and open opportunities. I'm pretty proud of the progress we've made in such a short amount of time. Trailblazers already testing fresh approaches to reach those who've been out of work, and it's fantastic to see government backing us with a 2nd year of funding. We're also working with partners across health, skills and employment to get that joined up system that works for everyone. And I'd like to thank the West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board for their continued support, and individually Rob Webster, their Chief Executive, for his leadership as co-chair of the Healthy Working Life Board. The board itself is already playing a key role in shaping this work, bringing together voices across the region. And I'm looking forward to its first public meeting on the 22nd of September, where we're going to hear from partners as we shape the next phase. Also, there's a strong focus on evaluation, so we can learn, adapt, be agile, make sure this investment delivers real impact. So back to yourself, Felix, to talk us through the recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor. We've been coming to your meetings for the last year or so to make sure you are fully up to date with what's going on here. The paper you've got provides a bit of an update on where we are. The decision that we are seeking from you is that you are happy to approve us accepting the second year of funding for the Trailblazer, and I'll come to that in a second, to accept the second year of funding, and thirdly, to delegate to us via our head of paid service to submit the delivery plan for year 2 of the Trailblazer, because we need to submit that by the end of this month, having only been told about that a few weeks ago. If we step back then, there are 3 main funding streams that are sort of funding, providing the resource for activity in this space. And this space is growing very quickly. We started off, for a long time, had played a role with DWP and the Job Centre around employment support. Economic inactivity became a big issue after COVID, and in particular, the health-led or economic inactivity due to health. Those numbers are growing. We have over 100,000 of such people in West Yorkshire. The work we're doing is to support people who are in work but at risk of falling out of work because of health reasons, and to support people who are out of work because of health to be able to go back into work, or at least have an opportunity to go back into work. The Trailblazer gave us £10 million to try new ways of doing this, focusing on economic inactivity for 1 year, £10 million. We've now been told we will get a second year of funding, similar amount of money to continue to do this. We do not know whether we will get more money in subsequent years. We might not. So it's really important that we make the most of this. The delivery plan that we use for year 1, our view is to continue that for year 2, where we can learn the lessons quickly for what we are doing in year 1. We learn that, we are agile, we pivot as quickly as possible. But for some things, it's just too early. And so we need to use whatever evidence we are gathering and make those decisions. It does mean there are implications that beyond this, if this is the only source of funding we have, it means our work with DWP will have to be even more tight, where we are focusing on economic inactivity, DWP focuses on unemployment support, and together we're able to cover the whole space. But it does mean the pivot that you approved last year for Employment West Yorkshire to begin to move more and more into economic inactivity, that pivot has to accelerate, because that is where the funding is, that is where the activity is. And we'll come back to you in subsequent meetings when we have greater clarity on what that looks like. Some really interesting work we're doing. We know that there are challenges in the economy. Through this funding, we are working with employers to understand what is the right set of incentives that employers require, so that they can then have the confidence and the reassurance to employ some of these people. And we are just about to start that trial. It's a similar one we're doing with personal incentives, again, to understand and to work with people to work out what are the right incentives, which if we could help them with, and a key one that keeps coming up with transport, for example, then that means they are able to go to work. So those are the kind of things we're doing. Hope this is helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a great piece of work, and with 100,000 people out of work due to ill health, economically inactive due to ill health, it's an urgent piece of work. Any comments? Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Sorry, in danger of being a broken record. I support the paper and all the objectives, but it's talking all about inputs, and there's nothing to tell us about outputs and outcomes. And I think it'd be really helpful when we get these papers to be able to see what the impact has been, so that we know we're on the right track.
Thank you. And there's definitely clear targets set for us from government attached to the money, so we're happy to do that. Any further comments? Yes, Councillor Anderson.
Was there any lessons learnt from phase 1 that you're going to bring into anything that worked exceptionally well, or unfortunately something that didn't work? Are there any, because it says there are no background documents referenced to this report, so I've got no way of looking to see what was good and what was bad in phase 1.
Felix.
Thank you. Really, really good question. So again, on outputs, we're happy to provide a lot more information. Some of the earlier papers that we've shared set out some of the key outputs that we're talking about. We have a big target, reducing the rate of increase in economic inactivity by at least 1,300 people. So we know we cannot slow that. We cannot reduce the total number. Our initial target that we've been given by government is to slow down the rate of growth. And if we can slow that down enough over a period, we can then begin to bring the overall numbers down. There are challenges with the numbers, full stop. ONS have acknowledged that labour force survey numbers coming through, which we rely on for this, are not as reliable as they could be. So we are hampered in different ways. Our team here have worked to see if there are different ways of measuring this, and we are still looking at that. But we take the point and we'll continue to help. As I said when I was speaking earlier on, unfortunately, it's too early to give you concrete evidence that this has worked and that has worked, because we are in the middle of year one. We are planning for year two, but we are in the middle of year one. So numbers for year one have not started coming out, and I don't want to quote anything to you that will. What some of the key things we've learned, though, is around the how. So we know it's been incredibly helpful that we have the structures in place and the partnerships in place to be able to deploy this really quickly. We were able to come together quickly, get the right arrangements, and get funding to the voluntary sector and other really local partners very quickly. That has stood us in good stead. The co-terminosity that we've got here and other players don't have when it comes to how our health and employment support and other arrangements come together has been a huge advantage, and other areas are playing catch up. So there are things like that that we know has been really helpful, and it's meant we've been able to move quickly. But in terms of the hard numbers, it is a bit early. And some of the things that I talked about earlier around incentives, we are only now going out to market.
Thank you. And if I could just put it in context, Councillor Anderson, I was at an event at a community centre where they had a jobs hub, and they were celebrating one of their best periods ever for getting people into work. Over 3 months, they got 10 people into work. The size of the challenge is enormous. And each of these individuals have so many complex needs as well. So the resources are many and varied and individual and bespoke. So we have a job on our hands, but we have the money and we have the will and the partnerships in place. So hopefully we can turn people's lives around. Okie doke, if we can then move on to the recommendations, can we note the proposed plan for delivering the second year of the Economic Inactivity Trailblazer programme? Thank you. And approve the acceptance of funding for the second year of the Economic Inactivity Trailblazer. Thank you. Delegate the development of the delivery plan to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself and the Chair of the Economy Board. Great stuff. Thank you. We're almost, we're over halfway through. It's 12:20. We're on a downhill slope, so please do keep your comments nice and lean. Moving on to Wakefield Futures and Early Years Workforce. And we are, it's an update on the region of learning and creativity work. We're making real progress in Wakefield and across West Yorkshire, building a skills system that works for everyone. Can I publicly thank Wakefield Futures Commission for their bold and ambitious recommendations. The proposals for a new innovation centre and targeted sector development show where's possible, where we think big and act locally. Also, the early years workforce plan moving forward is great to see. It's a vital sector. Practical steps outlined on recruitment, training and progression will help us build a stronger, more diverse workforce for the future. And these reports together show how we're delivering on our pledge to make sure West Yorkshire is a place where everyone, whatever their background, can access the skills and support they need. So can I ask Councillor Lewis, as the Chair of the Economy Committee, to speak to the report? Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I note your comments about being brief. So I think there's two bits of work here. You've introduced the Wakefield work, a really positive bit of work to look at a real challenge in Wakefield. Maybe Denise would like to say more about that. I look at Wakefield across the river from my ward, but I'm sure Denise will be able to talk about the work there in more detail. But I do think alongside some of the other real locality-based works like the Innovation Partnership in Leeds and other projects, it shows where we can bring a lot of the strategic objectives we have down to a real local level. The second piece is the early years workforce plan around recognising the key role that early years quality education and childcare plays for children, but also for supporting our work in the our work around having a more productive economy as well. And there's good recommendations here about how we can improve work in the sector.
Thank you, and also to say that the recommendations from Wakefield Futures have also gone to the new Secretary of State, Pat McFadden, who's now got responsibilities for DWP and skills, because we want to be seen as an innovator in this space, because this is the first time we've done something like this, and it is not right that the people of Wakefield seemingly don't have the opportunities of people across West Yorkshire in order to get those skills, training and qualifications. So Denise, would you like to say anything?
Bearing in mind you've said we need to hurry up, but I would say that this is an amazing thing that we're doing, and I think Wakefield can really benefit from it, so I'm fully supportive of it.
Thank you so much. And also moving on to Felix for final thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor. These are really two pivotal pieces of work which will feed into the Region of Learning and Creativity strategy that we are developing and into our actions across our whole remit. For the Wakefield piece of work, the key start when we were doing the local growth plan last year was that high-level attainment, first year university equivalent, Wakefield is almost 20 percentage points below the average. So it's about 26, 27%, I think, and it's around 43, I think about 46% in Leeds, as an example. And for a long time, many people have said this is because there's no university in Wakefield. And this was an opportunity for us to ask the more fundamental questions. And the commission that was set up has looked into this and have produced this report, which was launched last week, which looks at both the supply and demand side of the economy and the low-skill, low-wage equilibrium that has existed for the last few decades, and tries to then give us a set of recommendations, which, if we're able to implement even half of them, could trigger a level of transformation in the labour market. So we hope you are minded to approve this, and if you are, we then feed this into the rest of the work we're doing. On early years, again, really pivotal piece of work. So normally, the Combined Authority does not have any levers in this space. But as system leaders, it is important for us, not just because, important as it is, our children have the best start in life, but because if we get this right, it's another way of increasing economic participation and driving greater prosperity into our homes. And so again, we commissioned this piece of work to understand, was a mayoral commitment, to understand what is the state of the workforce and how can we be helpful. And we've shared the report here, which I hope you've been able to have a look at. And again, if you are minded to approve this or to endorse it, we then take it into the rest of our work, and where we can help to implement it, that is what we will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felix, and sorry to rush you. I could listen to you all day, but I'm giving you the glare to speed up. Okay, thank you so much. So are we happy to endorse the recommendations in the Wakefield Futures Commission Fund report? Thank you. And also endorse recommendations in the early years workforce plan. Thank you so much. Okie doke, moving on to driving innovation across the region. This is an update on our plans to drive innovation. As the report sets out, a huge opportunity to boost productivity and unlock growth. I'm encouraged by the proposals around the Local Innovation Partnership Fund, with at least 30 million allocated from government, earmarked for West Yorkshire, with a real chance to accelerate research, commercialisation and business development in every corner of our region. I'm also pleased to see strong governance at the heart of this work. The board will bring together voices from business, academia, government and communities, ensuring we have the right expertise guiding our innovation ambitions. And it's building a future where West Yorkshire leads the way on ideas on enterprise and inclusive growth. If I could come initially to Councillor Lewis, and then Mandy, and then Felix. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. And again, you've covered the main points in this report in your introduction, but again, it's another one around how we can use the power of devolution and the work and the partnerships we've got to deliver growth on the ground.
Thank you. Mandy?
I think everything is within the paper, but I think it's important whilst we do this work to keep a direct line of sight to business growth and how this generates it, not just to become innovation as an esoteric word that it has to have a result at the end of it.
Thank you. And finally, Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. It's an opportunity for us to look at innovation, which is the key driver of productivity, which is the only way in which we can grow prosperity. And so we have an opportunity. We've already been doing this. This fund that we are going to have access to from UKRI and from government, it's not the only source of activity. Through our investment zones, we're already investing in various sectors to grow innovation. This will be another opportunity. But the key ask of the board, if you're minded to, is to give us the permission to go and explore the options to set up this innovation board. That is the main ask in this paper. We do not have one. We've not had one before. We would have been asked. We would have come here to ask you anyway to do this, even if this fund was not forthcoming. But this fund, and this is having a board is a requirement of it. It's just sped up our activity, giving us a sense of urgency to make sure we put that in place. We recognize there are different arrangements that exist in our places, so we're having a look at all of that, and we'll come back to you with what a preferred option would look like when you meet again. But we need to submit to UKRI in November our plans, which if that is, if you are minded to approve that, we then will access the funding from April onwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm always making the case to government that surely innovation funds should be just delegated to mayors rather than going through this whole process of wave one, etc., UKRI. But that's for a future conversation. Thank you so much, Felix. Any further comments? No, thank you so much. Okay, so are we happy to approve the approach set out in the report? We are. And approve the establishment of an innovation board and draft terms of reference to oversee regional innovation activity and support UKRI readiness checks. Lovely, thank you. Okay, moving on to approvals. Our first approval for your consideration is Bradford City Village, an update on our investment in placemaking and housing-led regeneration, a significant step forward for Bradford City Village, a transformational scheme that will bring new homes, green spaces and community facilities to the heart of the city. I'm really pleased to see progress on phase 2, and the request for development funding reflects the scale and ambition of what's been delivered, creating that vibrant, inclusive neighbourhood that supports a mix of tenures, improves access to public transport and helps revitalise the city centre. If I could come to yourself, Councillor Jeffrey, as Chair of Place Regeneration and Housing, and then to Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Bradford City Village is a top priority for Bradford Council and for us in the surrounding region. This scheme is set to transform the centre of Bradford into a vibrant place to live and work. The change request we're discussing today is just one piece of a large puzzle to deliver this vision. This element of funding will help us in advance the design for this phase, which is an essential part of creating a significant shift in the residential market in the city centre. If approved, together we are making really important steps towards a brighter future for Bradford. I'm sure Susan's going to say a lot more about it.
Thank you, Susan, then Liz.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries and Mayor, for this investment going forward. Regeneration never stops, does it really? You have to keep going. Momentum is really building in Bradford, and we're really delighted to see that off the back of Bradford Live, the new markets, new Bradford Arts Centre opening next month. We've had National Media Museum investment in, and obviously City of Culture is really building up to be a fantastic finale to the end of the year. So it's all very exciting in Bradford at the moment, and this just shows that end of 2025, it just keeps going, and that's exactly what it should be. So our legacy is going to be regeneration, growth, creating a great place for people to live and work, and obviously the transport ambitions that is so central for West Yorkshire Combined Authority and us to deliver is really important for this regeneration work. So having that new rail station in the middle of Bradford, getting mass transit, bus franchising right, all those things really help lift all of us in West Yorkshire, but particularly in this instance, as we're talking about Bradford, obviously it's crucial for Bradford City Centre as well. So thank you very much for the continued investment, Mayor.
Thank you. And over to yourself, Liz.
Thank you. So as members will remember, you gave approvals previously to continue the work on this project. We will come back to you with further decisions around phase 2. The decision today is for the development funding, as already been clearly set out. So there's a bigger decision really to come on the funding, and this development funding enables the project to continue whilst we do the work. To answer some of the questions that you all rightly asked us about in terms of the funding and financing options for phase 2 going forward. So I just wanted to be clear that there is still, this is, as I think everybody said, regeneration is a continued set of decisions as we continue such large scale plans. So this is very much a small amount of money for development funding, and then we'll be coming back to you with a bigger decision around some of that funding and financing for phase 2 beyond it if you approve this today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions on Bradford City Village? No, thank you so much. So are we happy to approve Bradford City Village scheme to progress through the assurance process, including agreement to the change request for development funding and approval to enter into funding agreement with English Cities Fund with future decisions to follow the assurance pathway and approval routes set out in the report, subject to scheme tolerances? We are. Lovely. Thank you so much. So the next item is Huddersfield Bus Station and an update on our investment there. Significant step forward for Huddersfield Bus Station, a scheme that's going to deliver a safer, more modern and accessible public transport hub at the heart of town. It's going to be in the Weaver branding, as I mentioned earlier, as we continue to roll out our new transport brand in the most cost-effective way. I know how important this facility is to local residents and businesses, and I thank them for their patience, but I'm pleased to see progress being made. I also want to acknowledge the scale of ambition here. The funding commitment is significant, and it's right that members are cited on the increased forecast costs as we move towards full business case. Can I ask Councillor Hinchcliffe to speak, then Carol Patterson, leader of Kirklees Council, followed by Simon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Simon Pope, sorry. Thank you very much, Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's great to see this investment going in, and also at the start, as you know, the Weaver branding going throughout West Yorkshire, because it's going to be gradual rollout, so we can actually make sure we scale up in a financially prudent manner, and therefore it'd be lovely to see. I've seen some drawings; it looks great, and all these transport hubs are opportunities for regeneration in our towns and city centres. So over to Councillor Patterson.
Yes, and on that note, I mean, it is really part of our whole master plan for Huddersfield, and it will be great. We've already started on our part of the work in terms of the bus, not the bus stop, the car park above the bus station, and that's looking really, really good. Not completed, but it's really progressing, and really looking forward to see, yes, the Weaver brand on the bus station to complete the scheme.
And lots of ambitions for the heart of Huddersfield. I know that you've got, this is just one part of your plan. So Simon Pope, there's Transport Capital Programme Director.
Thank you, Mayor. The scheme involves refurbishment of the bus station itself, which is led by the Combined Authority, and the delivery of a new canopy and public realm adjacent to the bus station, which is being led by Kirklees Council. Members may recall that the outline business case for the combined scheme was approved by the Combined Authority in October 2022, with a total cost at that time of £20 million. Approval that we're seeking is for release of a further £993,000 of development costs for an early enabling works to divert utilities in order to shorten and de-risk later delivery of the main project. The full business case, which is due to be considered by the Combined Authority in January, is expected to indicate an increased cost of £27 million for the scheme, which is due to represents a £7 million increase from the outline approval, £1 million of which will be offset through an increased contribution from Kirklees Council. We're therefore bringing the decision to release further development budget to the Combined Authority to socialise the increased costs of the scheme prior to full approval, noting that the instruction of enabling works that it will enable demonstrates an implied commitment to future delivery. The reasons for cost escalation since the outline approval are set out in the report and will be considered further on presentation of the full approval in January, but include complex site constraints, the risk of introducing future maintenance liabilities, and the need to maintain live operations during delivery. Despite the increased cost, the scheme still represents medium value for money and has a comparable cost per stand to other bus station improvement schemes that are delivered or in construction. Funding for this scheme is through a combination of the Transforming Cities Fund grant from government and gain share capital, with the increased cost to be met through allocation from the programme level contingency pot without further impacting on the ability to deliver other schemes within the TCF programme. And as the largest bus station in West Yorkshire, the enhanced facility will provide a front door onto the franchise network once that launches in Huddersfield in April 2024.
Super, and I wonder if you could just reassure the committee that value engineering has been undertaken in the design in order to keep that increase as low as possible.
Absolutely, Mayor. We've undertaken a series of rounds of value engineering, and we've been trying to get the right balance between ensuring the scheme stays within an affordable envelope, but also avoids the introduction of maintenance liabilities in future that would cost more to resolve out with the main project.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just very clear, I support the scheme. It will be really good for Huddersfield. No issues with that. I just want to understand better the cost increase because it's not the first time we've been in this position with schemes. And reading through the justification for it, there's nothing really there that wasn't known when the original costing was put together. So I suppose part one is to understand how we were so far out in the first place, and two, what things we're going to put in place to make sure when we are costing things going forwards that we stick within the funding envelope, because there's a knock on somewhere. This is £6 million that can't be spent on something else now.
Thank you. This is my constant challenge because we have to understand, obviously inflation, war, all of those other things have escalated costs, but we also we need value for money, and this is public money, and we can't be dilettante with public money. We have to understand why we're making these decisions. So, Simon?
Thank you, Mayor. You are right that inflation has played its part, but undertaking further detailed technical work since feasibility, particularly with regards the live railway tunnels that sit beneath the site, has identified additional costs. I think the other thing that has since come to light is associated with possessions in Huddersfield Town Centre on the back of the Transpennine route upgrade, which means that our flexibility to decant services on street during construction has been more limited than originally anticipated. Therefore, the programme for delivery of the works is more lengthy and therefore more costly. We have looked at alternative scenarios around that, but our conclusion is that it's more prudent to keep services within the bus station, particularly during the launch of franchising, to remain a consistent offer to the customer. I think finally, we obviously learnt from our experience of delivering it at Halifax bus station and indeed the recovery of Bradford Interchange following that closure. We're ensuring that those lessons learned are carried forward into the development of future schemes and will indeed be carried forward on future schemes beyond Huddersfield itself.
Thank you. And maybe it would be worth just sharing more information with the committee.
Yes, very happy to do so.
Excuse me. Okay, so any further questions? Thank you. So are we happy to approve the Huddersfield Bus Station scheme to progress through the assurance process, including agreement to the change request for additional development funding as outlined in the report, and approve to enter into an addendum to the existing funding agreement with Counties Council, and confirmation that future decisions will follow the assurance pathway and approval routes set out in the paper? Good stuff. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is the portfolio summary. This is an update on our capital investment. Thank you, Mike. Update on our capital investment portfolio. As the report sets out, we're managing a transport programme worth around 2.5 billion, the largest share of our capital funding, and it's delivering real improvements across West Yorkshire. This gives us a clear picture of where we are and what we need to do to stay on track. So if I could invite Kate Taylor, our Director of Finance and Commercial Services, to take us through the report. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Mayor. I will, in the essence of time, take the report as read. This is the usual report that you get. Ultimately, there is no new decisions as a result of this. This is kind of capturing up all the decisions that have been previously taken and showing the impact on the funds and information that is the funding that is still left. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on the portfolio summary? No, thank you. Are we happy to note the portfolio summary information outlined in the report? Wonderful, thank you. I think I might just keep my voice by the end of this meeting. The next item, 16, future organisation state. As colleagues know, that the Government's English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill marks a major shift in how mayors and combined authorities operate, and I'm proud that West Yorkshire is helping to shape that future. The report in front of us sets out how our organisation will need to evolve, moving towards a strategic authority model that focuses on commissioning, on convening and influencing, rather than the direct service delivery. I'm encouraged by the review that's been carried out. It's clear we need the right expertise at the right level to deliver for the people of West Yorkshire. This is about building that organisation that's fit for the future, one that can lead on housing, on health, on public safety and strategic planning, and continue to deliver with impact across all of our priorities. Can I ask Ben Still, our Chief Executive, to take us through recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. I think, as you said in your opening remarks, that this is a time of change and transformation for all combined authorities. So this paper is setting out the future insofar as we take account of the things that we know, but of course it is indicative, and as has been noted earlier in the meeting, things can change. The other thing to say is that this is a paper that is focused on this organisation, recognising that the things that the combined authority achieves are all done through partnership, and that's important to keep sight of that. But this paper is about the organisation as it stands. I need to begin with an apology and ask for a change to the recommendations, which I think requires a bit of a vote to agree that. But some of the paragraph numbering and set out in the paper has gone a bit awry, and in particular the second recommendation 2.2, which says to endorse the proposals set out in paragraphs 3.14 to 3.16. That doesn't relate to the right paragraphs in the report, so my proposal is that we change that to more generically say that the proposal set out in the report itself. So I think, Satinder, we just need to, when we come to it, need to vote on that change as well as vote to that recommendation. What the paper does is, as the Mayor has said, is looks at the 7 areas of competency set out in the English Devolution and Empowerment Bill, looks at the kinds of roles that the combined authority is likely to need to undertake, and then draws conclusions about what the likely impact on the resourcing requirements and operating model of the organisation would be. In terms of operating model, there's a clear need that we've identified as officers for the organisation to become more agile, for it to begin to adopt a more matrix management approach and a project approach, and you'll see that both in future papers and in the way that we bring information to the combined authority. So we need to change the way that the organisation operates internally in order to be fit for purpose for the future requirements that we're going to face. Within that, we've also recognised that some of the skill sets within the organisation need to evolve, and so the paper that comes after this one, that Joe Dent, our Head of People and Transformation, will outline, responds to previous member requests for what does the future resourcing strategy and future skill set look like. So we'll come to that in that later paper. But I think it's fair to say that it is a substantial and significant change in skill sets that the organisation will require. And then the third piece is that we've undertaken a benchmarking exercise looking across other combined authorities to draw conclusions from what is best practice across the CAs that are developing across England. And you'll see from the paper that there is commonality in the challenges that we face, and most mature combined authorities are going through similar processes that we're going through. The recommendations, particularly the second one, then seeks endorsement to the conclusion that we've reached as officers, which is that we've looked at the operating model of the organisation, and in particular the Greater Manchester model of creating more arm's length bodies in order to have different delivery vehicles for different parts of the work of the combined authority. We've concluded that at the present time there's the balance of benefit is in having a single coherent organisation for the reasons set out in the paper, but we will of course keep that under review given future pressures and priorities. So I'll probably pause there, Mayor, thank you.
Lovely. Any questions or comments? No? Okay, thank you. So Satinder, we need to take a vote on the change of the recommendation?
Please, Mayor.
Are we happy to change the recommendation 2.2 to endorse the proposals in the report, not to implement arm's length bodies at this time? We're happy to do that. Okie doke. So are we happy to note the work being done on the future direction of the Combined Authority? And can we endorse the proposals in the report to not implement arm's length bodies at this time? And finally, endorse the proposals relating to the operating model and structure of the Combined Authority with a decision paper to be brought to the CA on structure later this year. Excellent. Thank you so much. Super. Now moving on to item 17, future resource readiness. As you've heard, this is about making sure we have the right people with the right skills in the right roles to deliver on our strategic priorities. We're taking a proactive approach. It's not just about filling posts, but building that resilient, agile workforce that reflects the communities we serve and leads by example on inclusion and fairness. And I'm particularly encouraged by the focus on data-driven workforce planning. That kind of insight will help us forecast future needs, identify risks early, and make smarter decisions how we grow and adapt. And also about aligning our people with the major programs we're delivering, from bus franchising to mass transit, and preparing for the wider responsibilities that come with becoming a mayoral strategic authority. So may I ask Jo Dent, our Assistant Director of People and Transformation, to take us through the recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've brought this paper to the Combined Authority today to note progress on how we are beginning to address and identify the needs the organisation requires to actually deliver all the many projects that have been tabled and more today. So the paper sets out the structure for the approach, about how we are meeting the resourcing requirements that we have now, but how we are also looking ahead as part of our business planning, part of our business goals, in terms of the skills, the risks, the needs as we go forward. So we are the initial data that we've shared with you today has been a very early first cut of what we've actually identified, and I think it's important to note that actually identifying that is a key part to us developing strategies to actually put plans in place to address that. So understanding that data is informing what we're doing in terms of our future recruitment strategies. It's informing how and where we get our graduates. It's informing how we actually develop our people internally, and giving us a long-term view in how we can actually achieve that. Something else that's important to note is we are really conscious of, as we develop those strategies, policies and procedures that support this resourcing plan, we are doing that in line with what our communities here, around our partners. We've met with colleagues at Leeds, colleagues in Bradford. Interestingly, we're really happy to note that the LGA, as a result of this paper being published, has already asked us to actually go and present the work we've done so far on the 26th of November at their workforce planning meeting. So we are working in conjunction with local colleges, universities, around how and where we find people. We acknowledge and we will develop risks as we actually go through and the plans, because we know that we've got a competing market, and many other combined authorities very close to us are looking to do very similar things. Unless any other questions, it's just really to note progress so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Great stuff. Are we happy to note the progress on the resourcing and talent strategic priorities and the alignment of the approach for the CA's transition to an outcome-focused operating model? We are perfect. Moving on to item 18, integrated business budget and resource planning. As the report sets out, we're preparing for the 26-27 planning cycle. Pleasing to see a clear structured approach that builds on the work we've already done to align our priorities with the West Yorkshire Plan. This is about making sure our financial and workforce planning is robust, forward-looking and fully integrated, and I'm encouraged by the emphasis on the strategic alignment with the new powers set out in the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill and the role that we are expected to play as a mayoral strategic authority. I also welcome the focus on medium-term financial planning. It's really vital we understand the pressures and risks ahead, whether that's inflation, interest rates or delivery capacity, and that we have a clear plan to maintain financial sustainability. And also pleasing to see the workforce planning embedded in this process, and essential we continue to build organisational readiness and ensure we have the skills and capacity to deliver across all of our missions. May I ask Sarah Eaton, our Director of Strategy, Communications and Intelligence, to take us through the recommendations. Sarah.
Thank you, Mayor. So this report is essentially setting out the approach to multi-year integrated business, budget and resource planning for the coming period, as you've just outlined. I think colleagues will note that we brought a report last year and we launched kind of that multi-year approach, and in May we brought the corporate plan and outlined our approach in terms of delivery planning for the coming period. That report also talked about a kind of a review, an annual review that would take place. So even though we've kind of got a 4-year plan, it's important that we kind of review that on an annual basis. So the strategic planning cycle now is underway for 2026-27, and we're working to make sure that plans are relevant, and that's really important in terms of making sure that what we're looking at is fit for purpose to meet our ambitions, as you've outlined. I think what the report sets out is kind of the work, you've mentioned some of the strategic alignment work that we're taking place, kind of looking at funding and delivery risks, and also the work that we're looking to do around the medium-term financial planning cycle, particularly around ensuring that kind of the activity is affordable and that there's a plan to kind of achieve financial sustainability moving forward. And as we've outlined, I think a key focus for this year is kind of integration of that resource planning, and that's a new area that we're looking to kind of build into this approach, which I think is really important in making sure that we've got that kind of really well-evidenced plan moving forward. So the timetable set out in this report, I think what we will be doing is fetching another report in October, which will look at prioritisation and kind of the work that we've already started on business planning, with a view to fetching the draft budget in early December to the next meeting. I think just to kind of indicate, and it is in the report, obviously, and we've talked about it previously, and I think the report that we brought to yourselves at the last meeting provided an update on kind of where we are with devolution and the integrated settlement. There are a number of key interdependencies between that work, and clearly the work around the integrated settlement will impact on kind of the plans that we're putting in place, particularly in terms of the quantum for the integrated settlement, which there's a note in there about autumn, and we know autumn can stretch for quite a long period of time, can't it? But that will clearly have an impact, as will kind of agreement of the outcomes framework. And that outcomes framework work will take place, is just kicking off, and we'll move up until December, but really clear that that's going to kind of impact on some of the work that we're doing over this current period. So just really want to highlight that. We've also, because we've kind of brought forward this timescale, we were talking about this in October last year, we've brought forward our public consultation. So you'll note in the paper that we launched our public consultation last week, and there's details in there about what that consultation is covering. That will run to the end of September, and that's really important because what we want to do is make sure the views of the public can feed into the approach that we are taking forward. The next steps are set out in the paper. I've just outlined those. I think the other thing that's in the paper, and I think it's important that we're looking beyond, we're continually looking forward, but is the work that we're planning to do around the medium-term financial strategy and our medium-term business plan, which will look beyond 2028. And I think it's the intention, and the dates are set out in the paper, for us to start that work in March 2026. So this means it's an important part of the process in terms of continually looking forward, particularly given some of the things that we've talked about today around devolution, the role of the combined authority as a strategic mayoral authority, and kind of some of the big projects around bus franchising and mass transit that are coming forward, that we continually look to that kind of medium-term position. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Sorry you had to rattle through that, but it's at 1 o'clock. Also, just very quickly to say that it's something that we campaign for extensively, that integrated single settlement, so it is pleasing that we're on our way with it. Any questions? No? Thank you so much. Are we happy to note the multi-year planning approach 2024-28 being undertaken for the 26-27 planning cycle? We are, thank you. And to note the implications of devolution and the integrated settlement on future business budget and resource planning. Wonderful. And also to receive an update on the approach to budget consultation for 26-27. Great stuff, thank you. Moving on to item 19, the scrutiny update. Thank you to the scrutiny chair and to your committee for your thoughtful engagement, both on the school travel policy decision and on the wider conversation about the mayoral soft power. Really important issues, and I welcome the constructive challenge and ideas put forward. As the report confirms, the committee resolved to release the school travel policy decision for implementation, and I'm grateful for your careful consideration of the matter. Minutes and the webcast are available for anyone to have a look at. Could I ask Councillor Barry Anderson, Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, to speak to the report, followed by Satinda Sahota, our Interim Assistant Director of Legal Governance and Compliance, to take us through the recommendations. And over to yourself.
Not a lot to add in terms of what's in the report here. We welcome the responses back from the Mayor. They'll be taken to scrutiny tomorrow for the Scrutiny Board to have a further look at, to come back again. And you will note that in paragraph 1 that we're going to come forward with some further recommendations as a result of the call-in, where there's lessons to be learned, the call-in procedures, etc. need to be looked at. But we would commend this report to you, and thank you for everyone who participated.
Thank you. Satinda.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Nothing much further to add, save to say that from my perspective, very grateful to members and officers for the constructive and helpful discussion that was had at that call-in meeting, and also to the Chair of Scrutiny, Councillor Anderson, for his chairmanship. Thank you, Mayor. Back to you for the recommendations.
Thank you. Any further comments? No, thank you. Are we happy to note the outcome of the call-in meeting on the 22nd of August and my response to Scrutiny's recommendations on mayoral soft power? Thank you. Moving on, item 20. Now, unfortunately, mistakenly, this item, governance arrangements, was omitted from the online pack due to a technical error. Paper copies, you'll see, were distributed to members and for public inspection. As the brief cover report sets out, we're making 2 important appointments, both of which will strengthen our leadership and resilience across the organisation. In accordance with procedures, standing orders, I propose the recommendations in the report as a motion. Can I ask Satinda Sahota to take us through the report?
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing much further to add, just 2 highlights to members and get for their confirmation that you all have a hard copy of the report, please. Thank you. So as the report sets out at paragraphs 1.1 and 1.2, we have appointments to the thematic committees. The individuals who are going to be appointed to those thematic committees are set out between paragraphs 3.1 and 3.4. The second purpose of this report is to appoint a deputy Section 73 officer, and that detail is set out at paragraph 3.5 of the report before you members. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, are we happy to appoint, Satinda, it's fine to go to recommendations now? Yep. Are we happy to appoint Carl Oxford as the Deputy Chair for the Place Regeneration and Housing Committee? Excellent. And appoint Mandy Rijard as Deputy Chair of the Economy Committee? Thank you. And approve the appointment of Jane Close as Deputy Section 73 Officer with effect from 19th of September 2025. Thank you. That finishes that item, but can I just very quickly say, this is your last meeting, Satinder. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for our organisation and your contribution. You've felt an absolutely safe pair of hands, and you've guided us through some, some changes and occasional choppy waters. So thank you, and I wish you all the best. I'm sure everybody will agree with me for your next steps, and they're very lucky to have you, whoever they are. So thank you very much, Satinder. Okie doke. So we've come to the end of the meeting. Just for the minutes for information, which provides members with details of minutes from other committees, as well as summaries from formal meetings that have been published on our website since the last meeting. So thank you, colleagues. That was a marathon meeting. Thank you for your input. It's been packed with plenty to get through, and I'm really grateful to see the way that everybody worked together to get that through. And just to end, can I remind everyone, please, of the next meeting, 16th of October 2025, and I hereby close the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Salwa. If you turn on the stream, please.